Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to all of my new subscribers. I really appreciate you jumping on board and supporting the work I do. Today I'm going to talk about a stitched journal, which is, a sort of a fairly straightforward concept in a way. I like to stitch at various times for different reasons. The reason I want to show you this stitched journal is that it's actually made from some of the leftover cloth from my printing experiments. So I wanted to show you the actual work itself, or the piece itself, and I'm going to talk about some of the ideas behind this. If you've looked at any of my videos about jelly plate printing on cloth, you will have seen these. These are the pieces of scrap fabric that I run my roller over when I'm trying to get rid of any excess ink on the plate, tidying up. I wipe my hands on them, I roll the roller on them, anything just to get rid of the paint. Sometimes I mop up things with them, but at the end of the day I have a lot of these and I actually think they're good. As an artwork in themselves, they're all very random, they're not planned, but they reflect what I've been printing, and I really like working into them. So sometimes I cut them up and use them for patchwork or piecing, but the other thing I like to do, and it's not so much a specific project, but it's an activity I do, is just straight stitching. Now, some of you might know the concept of slow stitching, and there's been some fantastic books put out about that in recent years. Some people see this sort of work, this sort of journal, as a meditation. They talk about slow stitch. They're all valid terms. I tend not to think of it like that. For me, it's a visual diary, like I've always kept as part of my art practice, but it's just a place for me to do some stitching and to sit and think. And sometimes I don't even do that. Sometimes it is just purely for the physical action of stitching. So I'll just show you roughly all the bits and pieces that make up the journal, and then I can talk a little bit more about it. The obvious thing is the cover. This was made from a couple of pieces of pillowcase, just stitched together with a running stitch. And this pillowcase I think has been through a dye pot at some stage. Nothing terribly shattering, so I thought it was a good blank canvas to work on. So what I decided was I like this format of having a cover over it. I probably still will do some more things to it, but this is it for the moment. And then what I did was I took one of my cloths and I cut it into thirds. This is from some of my very early printing, and this is actually just printed on a piece of old sheeting. I love the colours. This is a print that I did separately when I was looking at 2-colour printing, just having a bit of a play, and the rest of it is still either the front or the back side of that same piece of cloth. Also, because I was thinking I might want to take this with me if I'm going on a trip, I wanted to have it fairly secure in here, so I basically stitched some buttons on the end, and if I can get the buttons out through the buttonholes, then the whole piece comes apart, so I can just work on it in my hands. I often, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't get back to sleep, I'll often just sit up and do some stitching. And so the stitching which is on here now has basically come from that period of time. Just a night when I couldn't get to sleep, sit up and do a little bit of stitching until I get sleepy and go back to bed. The other thing about these, just even in the way I've stitched the pieces together, I've just had a bit of a play with stitches. I'm also very keen when I do this sort of work to stitch on both sides. So this is actually the back of where I just stitched a little piece of fabric onto it. I find that some of these pieces, like there's quite a bit of paint on this, so that can be a bit hard to get a needle through, but on the whole I find it quite easy to stitch into. And you know, it's a scrap piece of fabric. You can really play, you can let yourself go. There's no expectations with a piece of work like this, and that's exactly how I like it. So I'll pick up scraps, I'll just work on this however I like. And that's the lovely thing about these books. Here's a little spiral I've started to make just with some glitzy thread and a piece of embroidery cotton. I'm not thinking about anything in particular. I'm not making a specific project. This is purely to engage my hands. And often when I do that, that is when I come up with ideas. This is all about play. It's not about a finished project. There's no particular goal in mind other than to just keep stitching on this. And that's what I'm intending to do. This is not going to be finished in the next 5 minutes. I will do some updates as I do some more stitching into it. So for whatever reason, or if you have a reason, you might like to try doing something the same. Everything that's in here is recycled. I've just picked up bits of cloth I have sitting around. I have a little bag next to my chair which has got fabric scraps in it. There's another piece of old pillowcase, a scrap of dressmaking fabric. I've got my needle shoved in here, and I have a little zipper pouch which is where I tend to keep my threads. So just another example of what I do with all of these bits and pieces that I make when I'm printing. And you know, sometimes these turn into works of art in themselves, but at this stage, you know, this is just something to occupy my hands when I've got a few spare minutes or I need some distraction. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe and recommend the videos to anyone who you think might be interested. Thanks very much for coming along with me today. I'll see you later. Bye.